It was a bright, sunny day, and the college graduation ceremony was about to begin. Students were dressed in their caps and gowns, their faces filled with excitement and nerves. Families gathered in the stands, eagerly waiting to cheer for their loved ones. Among all the graduates, there was one who stood out, but not because of her fancy outfit or her high grades. This mom had something that no one expected. She was holding her newborn baby in her arms. As she walked into the crowded auditorium, everyone couldn't help but stare. Most people would have left their young children with someone else for a special day like this, but not her. She had made a decision that many thought was strange, maybe even impossible. She had brought her baby with her to the graduation ceremony, a place where noise and distraction were not usually welcomed. People whispered to each other, wondering what was going through her mind. What made her choose to bring her baby to such an important event? Was she trying to prove something? Or was there no one else she trusted to watch over her child? She could feel the eyes of everyone on her, but she kept walking, her steps steady, though a bit shaky. She smiled to herself, trying to ignore the growing tension in the air. She knew this was a big moment for her. She had worked hard for years to get to this point. The long nights of studying, the sacrifices, and the endless struggles to balance school and motherhood had all led to this day. But there was one thing she wasn't prepared for: how others would react to her decision. As she walked past rows of graduates and families, she could feel the eyes following her every move. Some people were giving her strange looks, while others were whispering behind their hands. It wasn't the attention she had hoped for. All she wanted was to feel proud of her achievement and be with her baby. But now she wondered if she had made a mistake. Was she wrong to bring her newborn to a place like this? She tried to shake off the doubt, but it lingered in the back of her mind. The baby was calm for now, but she could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had made it this far, but the journey wasn't over. She knew she would have to face even more challenges before the day ended. It wasn't just about walking across the stage and receiving her diploma. It was about proving to herself that she could do this, that she could handle motherhood and school at the same time. But there was one question that kept running through her mind. Would she be able to make it through the entire ceremony without something going wrong? Her heart raced as she reached the front of the room. She saw the stage up ahead, and for a moment, she felt a sense of pride. But the doubt quickly returned. She wasn't like the other graduates. They had been able to focus on their studies without the responsibility of caring for a baby. She had to balance both, and she feared people would judge her for it. Would they think she wasn't capable of handling the stress of both roles? Would they whisper about her behind her back once the ceremony was over? As she made her way to her seat, she tried to stay calm. She had come this far, and there was no turning back now. But it wasn't easy. Every step she took, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The crowd's eyes seemed to follow her every move, and her anxiety began to rise. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but one thing was certain: this graduation would be like no other. She had no idea how the rest of the day would play out, but she was ready to face whatever came her way. And then, in that moment of uncertainty, a calm thought crossed her mind. She was proud of herself. No matter what anyone thought, she had made it here. She had gotten her degree while raising a child, and that was something no one could take away from her. She smiled softly, holding her baby a little closer. Today, she wasn't just a graduate. She was a mother who had defied the odds and made her dreams come true. The ceremony began, and the sound of cheers filled the air as graduates and their families settled into their seats. The moment had finally arrived. Everyone was excited to see the graduates walk across the stage to collect their diplomas, marking the end of years of hard work. But as the ceremony went on, one question remained in the minds of the crowd: what would happen with the mom holding her newborn? As the speeches started, the mom couldn't help but feel a growing sense of anxiety. Her baby was sleeping peacefully in her arms, but she knew it wouldn't last. Babies didn't stay calm for long, especially in such a noisy and unfamiliar place. She had hoped the baby would sleep through most of the ceremony, but deep down, she knew it was a big risk to take. Every minute that passed, she felt her nerves tightening. She couldn't help but wonder, what if the baby woke up and started crying loudly in the middle of the ceremony? Would everyone stare at her? Would the attention turn negative? Her thoughts raced as the speeches continued, but she stayed focused. The baby remained asleep, and she took a deep breath, hoping things would stay calm. She tried to relax, but the anxiety inside her didn't go away. Every little movement from the baby made her nervous. Her heart raced, and she looked around, feeling like all eyes were on her. Would she be able to make it through the whole ceremony without something going wrong? The time for the graduates to start walking toward the stage was getting closer, and she still hadn't decided what to do. Would she stay in her seat, hoping the baby wouldn't wake up? Or would she make the difficult decision to leave early to avoid any embarrassing moments? Her mind kept going back and forth. She had worked so hard to get here, and she didn't want to miss this moment for anything. But the fear of something going wrong kept holding her back. Then it happened. The baby stirred slightly in her arms, and for a moment she thought she could ignore it. But then the baby let out a soft whimper. Her heart skipped a beat. She looked down at her newborn, trying to calm him without drawing attention. But it was clear, the baby wasn't going to stay asleep much longer. She could feel a rush of panic rising in her chest. The last thing she wanted was for the baby to start crying and ruin the moment for herself and everyone around her. But just as quickly as the fear had built up, something surprising happened. The baby let out another small sound, but then calmed down again, snuggling into her arms. She let out a sigh of relief. For the moment, it seemed like everything was going to be okay. She was able to relax a little, but the worry didn't completely disappear. She kept her focus on the stage, waiting for the moment when she would have to stand up and walk forward. Would the baby stay quiet, or would things take an unexpected turn? As the first graduate stood up to walk toward the stage, her anxiety crept back. She knew that her turn was coming soon. The closer the time got, the more nervous she became. She looked down at her baby again, checking to see if he was still asleep. He seemed peaceful, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something might happen. She told herself to stay calm, but the anxiety in her chest wouldn't go away. It felt like everyone was watching her every move, waiting for something to go wrong. And then, just when she thought the worst was over, the baby stirred again. A soft whimper escaped his lips. Her heart skipped a beat, and she tightened her grip on him. She glanced around, hoping no one would notice, but she could feel the eyes of the crowd on her. Would they judge her? Would they whisper about her decision to bring her baby to the ceremony? The fear of being judged weighed heavily on her shoulders, and she began to question if she had made the right choice. Despite all the doubt and fear running through her mind, she knew one thing for sure. This was her moment. She had fought so hard to get here. The challenges she had faced as a mother and student were unimaginable, but she had made it. Even though her heart was racing, she knew she couldn't back down now. She had to stand tall, no matter what happened next. Would the baby start crying, or would they both make it through the ceremony without a problem? Only time would tell. "You said," as the first graduate walked across the stage, receiving applause from the crowd, the mom could feel her heart pounding faster. She had been dreading this moment all day. Her turn to walk up to the stage was coming soon. She looked down at her baby, who had managed to stay calm for a little while longer. But she could feel him shifting slightly in her arms. Each small movement sent a wave of panic through her. She couldn't afford for the baby to start crying now. She had worked so hard to get here, and the last thing she wanted was for anything to ruin this moment. The thought of everyone watching her only made her more nervous. Her eyes scanned the crowd for a brief second, but she quickly turned her focus back to her baby, trying to keep him still. Her hands were starting to shake as she gently rocked him back and forth. The noise of the ceremony, people clapping, cheers from the audience, and the voices of the announcers seemed to get louder with every passing minute. It was so overwhelming. She kept telling herself to stay calm, but her mind kept racing with worry. When her name was finally called, It felt like time had frozen for a moment. She was supposed to stand up, walk to the stage, and accept her diploma. But all she could think about was whether the baby would start crying or if she would trip in front of everyone. Her knees felt weak, and she couldn't believe how fast her nerves had taken over. But as she stood up, something inside her told her to keep moving forward. She had to do this. For herself, for her baby, and for all the people who said she couldn't. With the baby still resting in her arms, she slowly started walking toward the stage. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her heart was racing, and it seemed like the noise around her grew louder. The sound of her footsteps echoed in her ears as she walked past the graduates who had already received their diplomas. She felt like she was in a world of her own, walking down a path of uncertainty. But she couldn't turn back now. As she reached the edge of the stage, she glanced up at the podium where the dean stood, ready to hand her the diploma. The moment was almost here. She could hear the whispers of the crowd, some curious, some sympathetic, others questioning her choice. She focused on the moment, trying to block out everything else. She had come so far, and she wasn't going to let fear take away this victory. The baby stirred in her arms again, letting out a soft cry. Her heart skipped a beat. She tried to hush him quietly, but it was too late. The baby's cry grew louder, filling the auditorium. For a moment, she froze. She could feel every eye in the room on her, and the panic started to rise again. Would the crowd react negatively? Would they judge her for bringing a baby to such an important event? But then something incredible happened. Instead of gasps or disapproving whispers, a soft murmur of understanding spread through the crowd. Some people smiled. Some even wiped away tears. She looked up, her heart still pounding, but now with a sense of pride. The baby's cry was no longer a distraction. It was a part of her journey. She wasn't just a graduate. She was a mother who had fought for this moment. And now, the crowd seemed to recognize that strength. She took a deep breath and stepped forward to receive her diploma. As the dean handed it to her, the crowd's applause filled the air. It was overwhelming. She felt a rush of emotions, relief, pride, and joy, all at once. She had done it. She had made it to the stage, with her baby in her arms, proving that nothing could stop her from reaching her goal. The baby had calmed down, and she held him tightly as she walked back to her seat, the applause continuing. She had done what she thought was impossible. Despite the fear, the doubt, and the judgment, she had walked across that stage and shown the world that being a mother and a student was possible. This moment wasn't just about the diploma. It was about everything she had overcome to get here. And in that moment, she knew she had made the right choice. Nothing could take away the pride she felt as a mother, a student, and a woman who had defied the odds. "You said." As the applause slowly faded, the mom returned to her seat, holding her baby close. Her heart was still racing, but there was a sense of relief now, a weight lifted off her shoulders. She couldn't believe what had just happened. She had made it through the hardest part of the ceremony, but her journey wasn't over. The baby, though calm for now, was still a source of worry. Would he start crying again? Would something go wrong before the ceremony ended? She settled into her seat, trying to enjoy the moment, but the nagging feeling of uncertainty didn't leave her. She glanced around at the other graduates, many of whom were now proudly showing off their diplomas. It was a beautiful moment, but she couldn't help but feel a little different from everyone else. While others had the freedom to relax and enjoy the event, she had to stay alert, constantly on edge, worried about her baby. But she had made it this far, and she wasn't about to let anything ruin the rest of her day. Her baby, now peacefully sleeping in her arms, gave her a few moments of peace. She let out a deep breath, looking around at the audience, hoping to find a sense of comfort in the faces around her. But the tension still lingered. What would happen next? She knew the ceremony would soon come to an end, and she would have to leave, but there was something about this moment that made her nervous. What would people think of her when they saw her walking out with a baby in her arms? Would they still see her as a graduate, Or would they just see a mother who had brought a baby to a place where babies didn't belong? She tried to push the thoughts aside. This was her moment. She had worked hard to get here. She had earned this degree, and she wasn't going to let anything take that away from her. But as she glanced around at the other graduates, she realized that her experience had been unlike anyone else's. While they celebrated their achievements with their families, she had celebrated alone, holding her baby close, trying to juggle both roles. It had been difficult, and she had faced so many doubts along the way. But now, in this moment, she felt proud of everything she had done. She was a mother and a graduate, and that was something no one could take away from her. But then, just as she was starting to feel more at ease, she noticed something unexpected. Some of the other graduates had started to look at her with admiration. They weren't whispering or judging her. They were smiling at her, giving her nods of approval. Some of the parents in the crowd even gave her a thumbs up. It was clear that they understood the difficulty of balancing motherhood and education, and they admired her for it. This shift in energy made her heart swell with pride. She had been so worried about how people would react to her choice to bring her baby to the ceremony. But now, she realized that she wasn't alone. There were people who understood, who appreciated her strength and determination. The fear that had been gripping her started to melt away, replaced by a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. The baby stirred slightly in her arms, but it didn't matter now. She could feel the support from the crowd, and it made her believe in herself even more. The mom looked down at her baby, smiling softly. She had done it. She had faced every challenge, every judgment, and every fear, and she had made it to this moment. The applause from earlier echoed in her mind, a reminder that her journey was worth every difficult step. As the ceremony began to wrap up, she knew it was almost time to leave. But she wasn't worried anymore. She had made it through the toughest part, and the rest of the day would be just another reminder of how strong she was. When she left, she wasn't just walking out with her baby in her arms. She was walking out as a graduate, proud of everything she had achieved. She had done what many thought was impossible, and now nothing could stop her from reaching even greater heights. The journey wasn't over, but in that moment, she knew that she was ready for whatever came next. She had faced the world with courage, and it had paid off. She wasn't just a mom or a graduate. She was both, and that was more than enough. You said. As the ceremony came to an end, the crowd began to stand and applaud the graduates, their faces glowing with pride and joy. The mom, still holding her baby in her arms, slowly stood up, her legs feeling a little weak from all the tension of the past hours. She glanced around at the other graduates, who were celebrating with their families, laughing and exchanging congratulations. For a moment, she felt a small pang of longing. She hadn't been able to fully enjoy the day like they had. But then she remembered what she had just achieved, and that feeling of longing was replaced by something even stronger: pride. She had done it. She had not only graduated, but she had done it while raising a newborn. She had faced countless challenges, and there had been so many moments when she wondered if she could keep going. But now, standing there with her baby, she knew she had proven something to herself. She had shown that no matter how hard life gets, if you're determined enough, you can make it through. As the crowd began to disperse and the graduates started to gather their things, the mom took a deep breath. She was exhausted, both mentally and physically, but there was no time to rest. There was still more to do. She had to leave the auditorium and head out to the parking lot, where her car was waiting. She couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, knowing the day was almost over. It had been a long journey, but it was one she would never forget. Walking out of the ceremony hall, she felt the weight of the diploma in her hand, the paper that symbolized all of her hard work. But it wasn't just the diploma that mattered. It was everything she had gone through to get here. She had faced so many challenges, from sleepless nights with a crying baby to the stress of assignments and exams. There were days when she felt like giving up, when she questioned if she was making the right decision. But now she had made it, and she had done it her way, with her baby by her side. As she walked through the parking lot, a few people stopped to congratulate her, some of them commenting on how amazing it was that she had managed to graduate while being a mom. She smiled politely, but inside she couldn't help but feel a little proud. She had done something many people thought was impossible, and even though she hadn't been able to fully experience the day like the other graduates, she knew that the accomplishment was hers. And that was enough. She finally reached her car and carefully buckled her baby into the car seat. The baby, who had been so calm throughout the ceremony, now seemed to be getting restless. She turned the key in the ignition, and the engine roared to life. The drive home would be quiet, and that was exactly what she needed. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that the hardest part of the day was over. As she drove, her mind wandered back to the ceremony. She thought about all the people who had supported her along the way, the friends, family, and even strangers who had seen her struggle and cheered her on. She had faced judgment and doubt, but those who truly mattered had seen her strength. And now, as she drove home, she knew that no one could take away the pride she felt in herself. She had done something incredible. When she finally arrived home, she carefully carried her baby inside and sat down to relax for the first time all day. She let out a deep breath, her body finally able to rest. The day had been a roller coaster of emotions, and there was still more to come. But in this quiet moment, she allowed herself to feel proud of everything she had achieved. She had taken the risk, and it had paid off. And as she sat there, with her baby in her arms, she couldn't help but smile. She had proven to herself and the world that no matter what obstacles you face, no matter how many people doubt you, you can always rise above. Today had been about more than just a graduation. It had been about showing herself that she was capable of more than she ever thought possible. And that was a lesson she would carry with her for the rest of her life. You said. As the days passed, the mom couldn't help but reflect on everything that had happened during her graduation day. It felt surreal to think back on how she had managed to walk across that stage with her newborn in her arms. The world outside had its expectations, but she had proven that there was more to success than just fitting into the mold. She had built her own path, one that wasn't easy, but one that was uniquely hers. Her phone buzzed with messages of congratulations. Friends and family had seen the photos and videos of her walking across the stage, and they were all praising her courage. Many of them had known how tough things had been for her during the years of school, juggling motherhood, and the challenges of being a student. But now, seeing her cross the finish line, they couldn't stop sharing their admiration. As she read through the messages, she found herself smiling, but also feeling a little overwhelmed. She had done it for herself, but the encouragement from others made it feel even more rewarding. Her heart swelled with gratitude as she realized that even when things had seemed impossible, she had built a support system, and that had made all the difference. But there was more to it than just the pride in her achievement. She had learned so much during those years. She had learned about resilience, patience, and the power of believing in herself, even when the world seemed to be against her. She had learned that motherhood didn't have to stop her from reaching her goals, and that being a mother and a student wasn't a contradiction. It was a unique combination that had made her stronger, not weaker. One afternoon, as she was sitting on the couch with her baby in her arms, she thought about what the future would look like. The diploma was in her hand, but it wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a symbol of everything she had overcome. She thought about all the new doors that were opening for her, the opportunities she could now pursue with her degree. She didn't know exactly where the road would take her, but she was more confident than ever that she could handle whatever came next. Her baby, now a little older, lay in her lap, gurgling happily. The mom couldn't help but laugh softly. Life had been hard, but it had also been beautiful. She had the love of her child, the satisfaction of completing her education, and the strength that came from surviving the hardest of days. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. She knew that there would be more challenges ahead. Life didn't stop testing you, no matter how much you achieved. But now she felt ready to face whatever the world threw at her, armed with the lessons she had learned and the confidence she had gained. As she looked at her baby, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. She wasn't just a mom who had graduated. She was a mom who had fought, who had faced the impossible, and had come out victorious. And that victory, she knew, wasn't just hers. It was a victory for every person who ever doubted her, and for every mother who had ever felt that the world was against her. Her journey wasn't over. It was only just beginning. And she was ready for whatever came next. You said. A few weeks after graduation, the mom's life began to settle into a new rhythm. The chaos and excitement of the ceremony had faded, but the sense of accomplishment lingered. As she sat down to reflect, she realized how much her journey had transformed her, not just as a student, but as a person, a mother, and a woman who had defied the odds. She had always dreamed of graduating, but the reality of it had felt so far away when she first became a mother. Yet now, that dream was not only fulfilled, but it was also even more meaningful than she had ever imagined. She began to share her story with others, not for recognition or praise, but because she wanted to inspire others who might be facing similar challenges. She knew there were many mothers out there, struggling to balance their dreams and their responsibilities. She had been one of them. And if she could do it, they could too. Her story became a source of motivation for those who needed it the most. She had faced the impossible and come out on the other side stronger. And she wanted others to see that they, too, could succeed, no matter how hard life seemed. As she moved forward, she started to see the opportunities opening up. Job offers and career prospects came her way, all because she had stayed focused and refused to give up. But despite all the external achievements, she knew that the most valuable thing she had gained wasn't her degree or job prospects. It was the self-belief she had built over the years. The strength she had found within herself was something no one could take away from her. She thought about her baby, who was growing up faster than she could keep up with. He was her constant reminder of why she had fought so hard. Every late-night study session, every moment of doubt, every sacrifice, it had all been worth it for him. She realized that becoming a mother hadn't taken away her dreams. It had given her new motivation to chase them, with more determination than ever before. Now, as she looked ahead, she knew there would be more challenges, but she felt ready for them. She had proven that she could rise above any obstacle, and that nothing, not motherhood, not the doubts of others, could hold her back from achieving what she set out to do. She knew the road wouldn't always be easy, but she also knew that with perseverance, love, and a relentless belief in herself, there was nothing she couldn't overcome. The future was wide open for her. She had earned her degree. She had earned her place in the world. And most importantly, she had earned her own respect. The journey had been long and full of twists and turns, but she had made it through. And as she held her baby in her arms, she couldn't help but smile. No matter what came next, she was ready. She had proven to herself and to the world that she was capable of anything. In the end, it wasn't just about the diploma or the career or the applause. It was about her journey, her growth, and the realization that she was stronger than she ever knew. She had taken that first step, and now there was nothing holding her back from living the life she had always